Hello everyone, welcome to part 2 of 4 in the series of ranking all of the talismans. I apologize if it's been a bit since I've uploaded. I'm trying to work on these videos so that they all come out one after another, unlike the first part which came out I believe over 2 months ago. And I got sick and stuff, yada yada, I'm back. So if you did not know, I'm currently ranking all of the talismans. This will be including PvE, this will be including PvP, and when I mention PvP, I do normally mean duels. There are some talismans that are usually used in invasions, and I will definitely be mentioning those, but mostly when I think about PvP, I think about duels, so I do have a bit of bias there. And I'm also thinking about duels at level 120, 125, around that level. So if you're enjoying this series, feel free to give this video a like and comment down below what your favorite talisman is. Subscribe. And on with the video. And at number 60 we have Primal Glintstone Blade, which reduces spell cost by 25%, which is pretty good. You'll be able to cast more spells without having to drink another cerulean flask. However, this does come with a downside. It also decreases your max health by 15%, which is quite the downside for something that could have helped with spellcasting builds. Honestly, if the max HP loss was like 5%, that would increase this talisman's viability significantly, making it a lot more niche, but still usable. So it'll be taking the 60th spot. And at number 59, we have the Lance Talisman, which increased the damage of melee attacks on horseback by 15%, which is actually a significant boost, and fighting on horseback isn't the worst thing ever. Fighting larger enemies, or enemies that also ride on horses while on horseback, is actually quite viable, and this can improve that viability. But this is basically as niche as it gets. You could definitely play the whole game without fighting on horseback. So it'll be taking the 59th spot. At number 58 we have the Ritual Shield Talisman, which reduces damage taken by 30% while you're at full health. This talisman is basically the oh crap, I'm gonna get one shot, let's put this on talisman, which may help with fighting bosses and honestly might deserve a bit higher spot than this. But I genuinely only see this useful in level 1 runs where you have the highest chance of being one shot. It's quite conditional, but it's actually a solid buff, so it'll be taking the 58th spot. And at number 57 we have the Carrion Filigreed Crest, which lowers the FP cost consumed by skills by 25%, which is very solid, especially for skills that take up a large chunk of FP. And this can help compensate your mind stat a little bit, but usually skills do not cost too much FP. Now 25% is a good bit and is the same as the Primal Glintstone Blade. However, it is only higher because the Primal Glintstone Blade takes a maximum HP cost, as the FP consumed by skills is not all that important, generally speaking. Like if the Primal Glintstone Blade did not have a maximum HP cost, it would probably be top 20, because FP consumption by spells is quite significant. However, by skills, not so much. Honestly, it's probably personal bias why this is so low, however, I just don't think it is very necessary. However, being able to spam Lightning Ram as much as you want does seem like a quite fun way to use this talisman. At number 55 and 56 we have the Companion Jar and the Perfumer's Talisman. The Companion Jar increases the damage dealt by Cracked Pot and Ritual Pot consumables by 20%, and the Perfumer's Talisman increases the damage of Spark Perfume by, I believe, also 20%. Now, I'm not going to lie, these talismans are actually pretty bad, but a 20% increase is quite significant, especially when paired with the pothead item that I am currently wearing. I guess it could be interesting if you wanted to do any throwable item builds. Honestly, these should probably be down a few more spots, but the 20% increase is what brings them here. And at number 54, we have the Roar Medallion, which will increase the effectiveness of roars. This increases the damage of Beast Roar, Troll's Roar, and the Starcaller Cry, as well as the damage of heavy attacks, after you buff with War Cry, Barbaric Roar, and Shriek of Melos. And all of these increases are by 15%, which is quite significant. The real reason that it is up as high as it is that it is affected by the War Cry skill and others like it, allowing you to deal more damage with heavy attacks, which can be quite significant against bosses and such, and has some other niche uses here and there. Honestly, it's a fun little talisman. I'd recommend trying it if you ever wanted to smash a boss in 2 hits. And at number 53 we have the Blue Dancer Charm, which will increase your damage based on how low your equip load is. It'll increase your physical damage by about 5, 10, 15% depending on how low your equipment load is. And apparently it'll scale at 20, 16, and 8 equipment load, which is quite light, which really doesn't hurt the viability of this talisman, as generally you'll want better armor so that you can take more hits. But yeah, still it should be a significant power boost, and can help out if you're trying to kill bosses quickly, or if you're planning on traveling light regardless. In order to get those light rolls, you might run this charm. However, there are enough flaws with it that it's really just not worth running in most cases. But yeah, it does have the niche and glass cannon built in, and it's not too horrible, so it'll be taking the 53 spot. At number 52 we have the Twin Blade Talisman, which increased the damage of the final hit of a chain by 20%. So this would be most effective on weapons with a quick chain of attacks, which I believe the Twin Blade is actually pretty quick itself in doing just that. But this talisman's hard to gauge as it is really just the final hit that is increased in damage, but it's a good chunk, it's 20%. Honestly, I wouldn't really recommend this in PvP, but this might be a bit handy in boss battles, as you're getting extra damage if you are able to stick on the boss and keep smacking them. A very interesting talisman, but I do not think it is too powerful, so we'll be taking the 52nd spot. And at number 51, we have the Spear Talisman, which increases the damage of thrusting weapon counterattacks by 15%. So what a thrusting weapon counterattack is when you hit someone with a thrusting attack while they're also in an attack animation, increasing the damage dealt, rewarding good timing and spacing. Now what this talisman does is it increases the damage of that counterattack. Now the problem with this talisman is that counterattacks are unique to thrust attacks, which are a specific type of damage. Something good for this talisman is that not all thrust attacks are made by thrusting weapons, or at least weapons that you would expect to have a thrust, like say a spear. Thrusting attacks can also be found on other weapons, like how many straight swords have a thrusting attack when they're one-handed and use the heavy attack. The damage boost is pretty solid and might be pretty viable if you like your spears and rapiers, so we'll be taking the 51st spot. And at number 50 we have the Arrow Sting Talisman, which increases the damage of arrows and bolts by 10%. This charm just being a generic damage boost for all sorts of crossbows and bows. I mean, even if you're not trying to snipe people down, crossbows and bows can see use in close quarters combat. Especially crossbows, since they can be taken up one-handed and paired with another weapon. Still, it's nothing crazy. It might be viable in some cases, but I definitely don't see this talisman every day. And at number 49, we have the Assassin's Crimson Dagger, which will heal you for more than 10% whenever you crit. Now, this is another one of those sustained talismans, but I find this to be one of the better ones, especially considering that you can get this pretty early game. But what's nice about this talisman is it can be used pretty effectively in boss battles, as eventually I'm sure you'll be able to deal enough poise damage to stagger them and crit them in the middle of the fight, healing a good chunk of HP when you need it the most. However, critical hits usually only happen once or twice during a boss battle, and it doesn't give too much sustain, but it can save you from using a flask, which in the early game can be quite helpful, as you don't have too many, and that's why it'll be taking the 49th spot. And at number 48, we have the Godskin Swaddling Cloth. And very similarly to the Crimson Dagger is a talisman that gives sustain during a certain form of damage. With the Swaddling Cloth, that'll be through successive hits, rewarding continuous attacks. Now again, I would find this to be most helpful during boss battles, and can help you sustain through battles quite nicely, especially if you're dual-wielding weapons. Now, I only put this over the Crimson Dagger as it is a bit more consistent, but only for certain weapons, and most usually when you're dual-wielding. And because of that, it is not that far ahead, and I do not find sustain to be overly powerful. But just like the Crimson Dagger, it can help you with flask usage, which can be quite nice. And at number 47, we have the Rotten Winged Insignia, which very similarly to the Swaddling Cloth has an effect with successive attacks. However, instead of healing you, it will increase your attack power. However, this procs more often than the Swaddling Cloth, and it's not restricted to weapon classes. So how this talisman works is it has tiers. It'll gain a stack after 3 hits, increasing damage with each stack up to a maximum of 3 stacks. The first stack increases damage by 6%, the second increasing it by 2%, and the third increasing it by 5%, up to a maximum of 13% extra damage. Now the problem is you'll have to maintain these stacks, which is not always a huge issue, but it can be against certain bosses. And in order to get these stacks easily, it's nice to dual wield weapons that are rather light and attack pretty fast, like dual wielding scimitars or daggers. This talisman is top tier if you're able to maintain all the stacks. However, if not, it becomes quite useless. So it'll be taking the 47th spot. And at number 46, we have the Arrow's Reach Talisman. This talisman increases the effective range of bows, crossbows, great bows, and ballistas. Pretty much any ranged weapon. But why is it ranked above the Arrow Sting Talisman, you might be asking, since that also increases the effectiveness of bows? Well, the reason is that this also increases the range of certain spells and skills. The big one for me being Bestial Sling, which is a pretty solid incantation, and when you increase the range of it, I'm sure its effectiveness is increased a decent bit. It does affect some other stuff, but that one is indeed my favorite. And because it provides more utility than to just bows, it will be taking the 46th spot. And at number 45, we have the Concealing Veil. This allows you to become invisible after a certain distance away from foes while crouching. And as far as trying to sneak up on people goes, this is probably one of the best ones. This doesn't let you try to blend into anything, it just makes you completely invisible. However, you do have to be crouched. This talisman may make it way easier to sneak up on someone. You just swap to it like while invading, and then a little crouch towards them while trying to find the host. You find them, you take it off and you fight, right? Maybe thanks to this talisman you'll get some extra sneak attack in or something, I don't know. Honestly, the value of this talisman is your imagination and what you think you can do with it. However, it is not just inherently strong, so it will be taking the 45th spot. And at number 44, we have the Cursed Sword Talisman. This talisman increases the damage of guard counters by 20%. Now, if you don't know what a guard counter is, I actually didn't before making this video. It's when after you block with a shield, you use the heavy attack button and you'll use a counter attack, which does a decent chunk of damage. On the wiki, it says it's comparable to a charged heavy attack, and it requires precise timing. And the curved sword talisman will increase the damage of this guard counter attack. Personally, I've never seen anybody actually use this, like an actual person. And in PvP, when you have to account for lag and stuff, it's hard to like nicely time anything. But I'm sure you could use this in PvE to a certain degree of effectiveness. I'm honestly not too sure how good guard counters are, but I'm sure it's difficult enough to pull off in PvP matches, therefore it'll be going to the 44th spot for now. And at number 43 we have the Dagger Talisman. This talisman increases the damage of critical hits by 17%. A critical hit counts as whenever you backstab a creature or person, or whenever you riposte a creature or person. Now, this is another one of those things you don't really see in PvP. Basically, backstabs are impossible online with lag and whatnot, and parrying can be difficult for the same reason. Critical hits just don't really feel the same in this game, as they did in Dark Souls 3, therefore this will be taking the 43rd spot. And at number 42, we have the Old Lord's Talisman. This increases the duration of spells by 30%. Now do keep in mind this is only spells, you can't use this with Ashes of War, and unique skills and the like. However, this can be fairly helpful. A whole 30% is a decent bit longer than the original durations. This can affect healing spells like the healing regeneration spells, those will last for longer so you'll heal for more. This can affect damage, this can affect all the incantations that can buff you. And that's about it. Maybe something to consider if you like buffing, but that's basically all the use that you'll get out of it. And at number 41, we'll have the Axe Talisman. This talisman increases the damage of heavy attacks by 10%, and this is only the charged version of the heavy attack. I highly doubt this sees use in PvP, however in PvE, actually fighting bosses and whatnot, heavy attacks, especially charged heavy attacks, do a ton of staggering, like a bunch of poise damage, and this can really help with that. I've seen speedrunners, try, I think it was Distortion that did a level 1 run that I watched. He used the Serpent Hunter Spear, I think, and he only used charge heavy attacks. So I know this has a use and might honestly be pretty worth it, as heavy attacks on their own are already slow, and charging the heavy attack is almost worse, unless you're trying to catch someone out, but this only increases the damage by 10%, so it's like hard to gauge. So this will be taking the 41st spot.